Nice. So, as we go into the final chunk of our big segment, we save our delayed joiner, our mishearer, our burrito maker, Jacob Stewart, for his picks on movies. I assume that you have just yanked these right out of a hat
Yeah,
in preparation for this.
These are absolute. Yeah, these are totally random choices. Like, just like, yeah.
Shuffle.
So I'll go ahead and get into mine. So like Josh, probably at the end, since I'm gonna be skipping a few of my favorites, I will mention like what some of my what my top 4 favorites are. Zach is shaking his head, but listeners, I'm gonna do it anyway. So first off, I think the first one I'm gonna talk about is the Grand Budapest Hotel, which is directed by Wes Anderson, for those who don't know. Now, Josh, I know you've seen this movie, and you've seen a couple other Wes Anderson films. Zach, have you seen any Wes Anderson films by chance?
I think I've seen some of his films. I've not seen the Grand Budapest Hotel, though.
Yeah. Yeah, Wes Anderson he's one of those directors, like, he's one of those directors you could watch, like, you could see just one scene from a movie, and you'll know it was directed by him. Just because he's got such a just distinct visual style. Yeah, like he likes everything to be really, what is the word I'm looking for? Like really,
Vibrant.
yeah, vibrant, and like the word I'm thinking of,
Eccentric.
it's like, no, it's like the way he frames his shots, like everything is really like even and kind of like symmetrical. That's the word I'm thinking of. Thank you, Josh. Yeah.
That's the word of the day. If you guessed
Word of the
symmetrical
day
was going to be the word of the day, leave it in the comments that you knew that was
We
coming.
will also accept symmetry.
But yeah, the reason I picked this, well, there are multiple reasons, but I think the reason I picked it is because this was kind of the movie that got me into film as an art form, in a way. Because, like, when I was in high school, like, I mostly just checked out, just what was the next big movie coming out, what was the next big blockbuster and stuff like that. And I saw a trailer for Grand Budapest Hotel, and I had just never seen anything like it. Just like the visual style and everything, it was just really interesting to me. And I watched it, and I absolutely loved it. And that just kind of like it really broadened my palette, I guess. Like when it came to films that I tried to seek out, I try to seek out just stuff that's off the beaten path and everything. And not to say Wes Anderson is like, super off the beaten path or anything. It was to me at the time. But, yeah, just seeing the way that he incorporated his visual style and everything really got me into just, I think, the art form of film as a whole. But down to the way it's written and everything. Kind of what I mentioned earlier about how certain films just kind of like draw you into their world just completely. Great Budapest Hotel, really, with its visual style, just it feels really unique. Like you're not going to watch another movie like that. And I think another thing that I really like about it, and I'll touch on this with another one of my films on my list, is the way it combines comedy with its more serious elements. Because when you look at this story on paper, like it's actually like really sad. Like if you just read a summary of the film, you're just like, okay, yeah, this is kind of depressing. But when you're watching it, it feels like this really happy-go-lucky kind of comedy, And I really like films that use comedy to kind of I don't know, kind of like I feel like one thing that I've always liked is when I feel like when you laugh with a film, like you're more likely to cry with it, if that makes sense.
You
like,
have to have.
It certainly was true for Josh.
In stories
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
You can't just go, okay, this is a sad movie. It's going to start sad. The plot's going to be sad, and then it's going to end sad. You have to go, okay, we have these breaks in between so that when we really hit on the emotional elements, they have an even stronger impact than if the whole movie was just emotional.
Yeah, yeah. Because, like, really, the first, like, I don't know, like, first probably 90% of this movie is, like, feels like just pure comedy and just, like, adventure and fun. And then, like, I'm not going to spoil anything, but, like, toward the end, there's just kind of, like, this just needle drop where just stuff gets, just super serious and dark. And it kind of ends on kind of a grim note. And the reason for that is because it's being told, like, the entire thing is technically a flashback. This guy's telling a story of, like, his time working as a lobby boy for this hotel, the Grand Budapest Hotel. And, like, I think the idea behind it is that in these flashbacks, like, essentially this is kind of like the idealized version of what happened. Everything's a little bit more over the top and vibrant and colorful and everything. And, like, he's telling it like that as a way to kind of mask, like, the sadness of it, like the fact that, you know, like, a lot of people in the story aren't around anymore and that he misses it and things like that. So, but yeah, that would be the first one.
Comedy
on
as
my
a
list.
vehicle for deep storytelling.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it.
That is a really good way of putting it. I also love that you described it as the film that got you into film as, like, a creative outlet or whatever you said. I mean, obviously I can relate to that in some direction, but I think that that's an interesting film to choose to mean that much to you, just because of Wes Anderson's inherent style. Because, you know, like you said, you know, you can go see the average blockbuster and go, man, it'd really be cool to be the next Michael Bay. And it's another thing to go and watch something that has a distinct visual style that really not, I feel, unless you are a somewhat above average movie watcher, these, like, Wes Anderson movies are probably not something that you're watching really. So being able to see those and go, screw Michael Bay, I want to make this. I feel like that's just a different direction.
Screw Michael Bay.
But I feel
Well,
like
to
that's
me,
Who would
it's
want to
kind
be
of
that
like,
guy?
and I feel like it really says a lot about the style that you have in your own creative works.
right? Yeah, to me, because, like, you know, growing up, like, you know, I loved stuff like Star Wars. I still do, but it's like just being able, like, this was one of the first movies that made me see, like, oh wow, you can really do some really different and unique things with this art form. And I like seeing that. I like seeing people do things that, you know, you don't typically see in an average movie. I like, kind of like what Zach was saying with Mad Max. I like seeing directors, like, use a movie's full visual potential, if that makes sense.
Well, let's get on to your next two, because I've looked ahead at your list, and you have also cheated. So you have one other movie and then a trilogy. So
no.
Get to work there, Chef Boy.
I actually cheated in a different way because I changed my list, but we'll get to that.
Oh wow! So
Yeah,
you can't even tell us what
We have no idea what
you
expect.
actually got going on. No
Nope.
idea what to expect.
Nope.
All we know is at some point the oven bell is going to go off, and there's going to be some good food
God, I hope so. That
in
has
Jacob's
been-
apartment.
That's really been
How
going
long
on.
did you put them in for?
That really has been going on for a while,
long
but
has
I'm
this
on a
episode
roll,
been
so
going?
I'll get to that. I'll get to that later. Don't answer that because it's going to affect us. Okay.
He's gone
So-
on low for like
Okay.
100 degrees for an hour.
I wouldn't worry about it. It'll be fine. Okay, so the next one on my list, and this one, it's surprising to me because, like, personally, I'm not a huge Marvel fan. Like, I've always been more of a Star Wars guy and everything. I don't dislike Marvel. It's just I've never been, like, super obsessed with it.
You're not
like, a lot.
Josh.
Right? Yeah. But
Josh is a Marvel stan for anyone that doesn't know Josh
I am
personally.
not an unconditional Marvel stan, though, and I would like to clear that up right
that is a
now.
good distinction.
That's
to
that's
have.
that's a subject for another time. Until you prove otherwise, you are the unconditional Marvel stan.
Yeah, Josh's favorite movie of the past year was Morbius. But,
Oh,
Yes,
God.
it's Morbin time.
Not the trash piece
but
of the
anyway.
decade.
What you got, Jacob? What Marvel movie
next one
tickled
on
your
my
biscuit?
the next one on my list, I think you guys already know what it is because I know Josh also loves this movie. Is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And it's for a lot of reasons, but I feel like the biggest one is, like, if you gave me, like, you know, a budget for a movie like this is the type of movie I would want to make. Like, just this kind of bombastic, like, action adventure, but also with a lot of just over the top comedy. Like, the tone of this movie is, like, honestly, the tone that James Gunn goes for in a lot of his works is kind of the tone I try to go for in some of my work. It kind of builds on already what I've said with Grand Budapest Hotel, using comedy to like reach some deeper truths, you know. And I think a good way to explain how Guardians 2 uses that is arguably the most like in-depth character arc in this film goes to a CGI raccoon. You know? And like literally the last shot of the movie is a single tear falling down a CGI raccoon's face, and it makes me tear up every single time. And it's like it's that mix of the absurd with just like genuine emotion that just really speaks to me as an artist. Like that's what I want to recreate. Like I want to have a scene like I love that in the same movie you can have, you know, a scene where, you know, you've got a guy with a magic arrow that he controls by whistling, and he's killing people alongside a CG raccoon and a little tree man. And then later in the same movie, you could talk about how somebody who's not your blood relative can be a father to you, you know, just like real serious discussions like that. I like the duality of films like that. And I think it has just a lot of heart to it. Like you could tell this was a personal film to James Gunn. Like if you read just like stuff he's written about it and posted about it and everything like on his social media. And I like the idea of using big kind of bombastic stories like that to kind of like have them be a personal story to you, you know? And I feel like when you do that, it also, in turn, it affects the audience. Like the more personal you make it to yourself in your own life, I feel like it will also touch a lot of other people really personally.
Y'all are gonna make me have to rewatch this movie because I guess I've missed something in my remembrance of it or my initial watching of it, because I like Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, better, and I like so many other Marvel movies ahead of this one. But
Yeah.
I know both you and Josh like love this movie, top of the list of like your Marvel list, and
Yeah,
sometimes
see, like,
your just like movie list.
Like, I'm probably not going to be rewatching any Marvel movies, really, except for the Guardians movies. And I just think there's just a certain personal touch that James Gunn puts into them that just a lot of the other directors don't, personally. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like he would have made these movies even if they weren't under Marvel, if that makes sense. Like, he would have, like, told this story.
They would have just been pirates instead of
like
boys.
he was, you could tell he wanted to tell this story. This story meant a lot to him. And I love the idea of that. I love the idea that you could like speak personal truths through just like ridiculous concepts like that.
I would like to agree with that statement that you just made, but also change it a little bit in the sense that James Gunn very much does, you know, like this is a story that, you know, he may have wanted to tell regardless. James Gunn very much does choose the characters that he tells stories about very carefully. And if you follow him, he's very adamant about that. Like he's one of the reasons that he knew, you know, one of the reasons that I think he chooses the characters that he does, the IPs that he does, to create these stories about is partially because he's able to tell those stories that he wants with them without changing who they already are as characters. He's taking these less well-known figures that people maybe don't necessarily know, but are, you know, big parts of his life in media growing up, especially in comic books, and basically going. I really like the way that you put it in the sense of being able to have that duality of absurd comedy and really serious topics as well, but being able to tell those types of stories that, you know, he did want to tell with characters that do already exist that people maybe don't know about. And he is very good at telling the story of a group of people a group of unlikely people coming together as a family, and that's really kind of the trend that he hits in almost all of his movies, especially as of late. And he's very good at it. And of course, you mentioned it. I love this movie as well. I actually think this is one of the first movies that me and you really connected over, because we share a lot of like very specific same opinions about it. All the way down to things like you mentioned a minute ago, the ending of the movie with Rocket letting out that final tear is literally one of my favorite shots in any movie ever. And
Absolutely.
it's so good. And not because it is absurd, but because the culmination of his character arc has built to a point throughout that entire film, and being able to have the boldness to end on something like that with a franchise as big as Marvel, and still go, okay, well, the people that understand the emotional impact of this film are the ones that I'm doing this for, and that's really important.
Yeah, like I just love when you can take these just like these crazy, wacky concepts, but like the emotion is genuine behind it. I think that makes all the difference in a story like that. But yeah,
Well, get us on to your last point, and I'll queue up Guardians 2 on my queue so I can rewatch it and see if I'm just so wrong. But I've never been wrong before about a movie in my whole life, so I doubt it.
Oh boy!
But we'll see. There's a first time for everything.
That's the hot take of the night, folks. Okay, so my third movie, I can already see Zach shaking his head on this one. Okay, so because
I know what
there's
it's gonna
some
be.
debate. He knows what it's gonna be. Because there's some debate over whether.
I would like to preemptively butt out of this conversation. I will not be partaking.
Oh no.
That's fine. That's fine. But I just, you know what? It's fine. Like the impact it's had on me, I feel like it deserves a spot here. But like, there's some
If you
debate.
say Twin Peaks, I'm gonna hurt you.
Some people debate whether or not this is technically a movie or not. So, Twin Peaks: The Return.
Oh God.
It's not a. So okay, let me preface this. So yeah, it's a TV show, but it's been ranked. It's been noted in several publications as like an 18-hour movie. David Lynch wrote the script as a movie.
Oh well, in that case, Neon Genesis Evangelion is just like a 24-hour movie. It's fine.
But yeah, and I really debate even putting it on this list. But I think in terms of what if this was like a actual like ranking of your favorite films, I wouldn't have put it on here. But since this was stuff that like defines our taste and like our style and everything, I felt like I had to put it on there. Like it made too big of an impact on me to not put it on there.
You seem like you take a lot of inspiration in your own work from David Lynch. So.
Oh yeah. And I will allow it. The only reason the movie limitation was on this to begin with was to construct floodgates to keep us from
and I'm not gonna
in other zones.
I'm not gonna like
no, it's done. You've ruined it. The floodgate is open.
Because if I was gonna go full on at the TV, like I would have skipped all three of these and went on to Avatar: The Last Airbender as like my biggest like creative influence, but I'm not going there. We'll make a
not
TV
going there yet.
Yeah,
it's already open. There's the floodgate.
I'll explain a little bit of context for what Twin Peaks: The Return is. It's basically the third season of the TV show Twin Peaks, but there's a bit of backstory behind that. Basically, the original Twin Peaks series, which is about the death of a girl named Laura Palmer in this Pacific Northwest town of Twin Peaks. This FBI agent named Dale Cooper shows up and he tries to solve who killed Laura Palmer. And then a bunch of weird stuff happens. And basically, in the original series, the mystery of who killed Laura Palmer was never actually supposed to be solved, or it was supposed to only be solved like at the very end of the show. Like the mystery was just an excuse to like set up these characters and like their stories and everything. But the studio, the network, wanted David Lynch, the creator of the show, to reveal who did it. And so about halfway through season 2, they kind of forced his hand and he had to reveal the killer. And then after that, he left the show for a bit. And the show kind of went downhill for a little bit into its second season. It's pretty widely agreed upon by fans that it's kind of the low point of the show. And then by the end of the show, he came back, David Lynch did, to direct the final episode. But by then, viewership had fallen off because, like, with the killer reveal, nobody was interested anymore, and the show got canceled. After it got canceled, he made a movie. There actually is a Twin Peaks movie, which I could have put on this list, but I didn't, called Fire Walk With Me. And that movie came out to mixed reception, and it basically, after that, Twin Peaks was kind of dead for basically 25 years after that, which is interesting because at the end of I don't want to get too off the rails here, but at the end of the second season,
I can't even see the rails anymore.
I'll see you in 25 years, and then he did.
Yes. It said, I'll see you again in 25 years, and then literally 25 years later, this third season called Twin Peaks The Return, which is technically a limited series or an 18-hour movie, whatever you want to call it. It's art. Who am I to say?
It's art.
Basically,
who are we to judge? What's the point of this podcast? We can't judge art.
It came out, I believe, in 2016 or 17. I can't remember. But basically, it picks up where the story left off, but it feels almost absolutely nothing like the original show.
Perfect.
And honestly, describing the plot, like, the plot doesn't matter.
Oh, I've
in
seen
this show.
tidbits of Twin Peaks. I'm surprised you could explain the plot of the initial series.
The plot does not matter in the third season. Although there is a plot, and you can follow it. You just have to pay attention. But that doesn't mean you'll understand all of it, because I certainly don't. But
it certainly fits the absurdist nature of some of the stuff you write and how you like to be off the wall.
So, yeah, the whole reason I put it on this list, and as pretentious as this sounds, it's also totally true. It kind of changed the way that I look at art, which, yeah, that's a bold statement, but, like, there's so many scenes and things in here that I initially just didn't understand, and, like, I don't know, it's one of those things, like, growing up, like, you know, if I was watching a movie that was a little slow or I didn't understand what was going on, I'd be like, this is dumb, you know, like when I was a dumb teenager. And this was kind of the show to kind of convince me to meet the artist halfway with their work, and just kind of, I don't know, it made me a more patient viewer in a lot of instances. To kind of give context, there's literally a scene in this. It's 5 minutes of a character sweeping, and there's really no point to it. It's just like this guy's like sweeping up an empty bar, basically an empty roadhouse, and it goes on for a good 3 or 4 minutes. It's just sweeping, and I don't know what the point is. And there's a lot of scenes like that. There's a lot of plot lines that don't really go anywhere. There's a lot of scenes that go on for a long time. And I don't know, there's something about it that just captivates me in a way not a lot of art does. And it kind of made me, I don't know, be more patient going into other types of art like that. But apart from that, on a stylistic choice, one thing I mentioned before with Wes Anderson is I like when stuff, like when art doesn't, like when it tries different things, when it doesn't necessarily go do the same thing that everybody else has been doing. And I've literally, in the case of Twin Peaks The Return, I've never seen anything like that before in my life. And like some of the images and things that David Lynch thought of that he put on screen, it blows my mind how somebody can even think of that stuff. And like, you want to see something where somebody is just putting like their full creative potential onto the screen. Like that's the thing to watch, is Twin Peaks The Return. But and I also just really like
back into feeds back into kind of what Josh has talked about and what I talked about with Mad Max Fury Road, which is that whole commitment. Like,
yes.
I think a through line of all of this is like, aside from stuff like little notes about the stories we like to write or listen to, it's if anything, we like the people that respect what they're writing and producing enough that they commit full bore and are like, this is it. Take it or leave it.
But yeah, another aspect of like the style of this show, and I guess just David Lynch his work in general is this kind of surrealist nature of his work. Like, there's a lot of really kind of dark and strange elements to his work, and that's something that I've always really enjoyed. And another thing that kind of going back to what I was saying about how it kind of changed my perspective of how I view art and everything, I've always liked a happy ending in the stuff I watch. And like, not to spoil anything, this doesn't have the happiest ending. The Return,
I'm not
doesn't.
surprised.
Yeah, and like the first time I watched it, it kind of just left me just shocked when I watched it. Then I saw the ending, but it's one of those endings that's also just really open to interpretation. And I don't know, it just kind of like, I guess, opened my mind in a way to be like, that's still a really good ending because it stuck to the themes of the work. And there's so many different ways to interpret it. Like, I've heard countless different theories over what the ending actually means in that show. And like, the fact that almost any of them could be right, I think is just like fascinating to me. But yeah, that's one of those things I could talk about for hours, but we don't have time for that.
Oh, I believe it. I think me and Josh both believe it now.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I'm talking about Twin Peaks.
I will say,
hell or high water.
I would like to add a comment in regards to, I really like what you said about how kind of the premise or plot of the show is less important than just introducing you to those characters. I really think that any significant story, that is kind of the entire point. Like your plot is there to just kind of serve your characters on, whatever story it is that you're trying to tell there. Like, the premise, as absurd or fictional as it may be, is there to is to help serve relatable characters that everybody in life can relate to.
Well, it's like a scenario or a level in a video game or something. Like, it's just there to put you in an event, a time and space with a thing. And then the real cool stuff happens depending on how you choose to interact with the scenario and how you choose to solve the problems. That's the stuff that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, because really, like, with a lot of David Lynch's work, it's like like the images and the stuff going on, it could be really confusing sometimes, but like the themes that he's working with are usually actually pretty simple and straightforward. It usually boils down to, just really simple, relatable things. And I think that's one of the things that appeals to me about his work, that is crazy and surreal as things get, like the themes and everything are still really relatable.
I certainly was not expecting those options from you to come from those, but I'm glad that we had
They all
this
make
chat.
sense
I
to
feel
me.
like I learned a little bit about you guys. We got to wrap up. There is definitely a burnt brick of a burrito sitting in Jacob's oven right now.
You want to go check on that real quick, actually?
If
No, actually,
honestly,
I'm invested now.
if your smoke alarms weren't battery dead, they would probably be going off right now.
Tell you what, I'll tell you this. Once we finish our next segment, I'll put batteries in, and we'll see how that goes.
No, after this next segment, I am divested from your kitchen antics.
Fair
all
enough.
right? And next episode, you better be on your A game, Buster. No distractions. All right?
How am I not on my A game? I brought a TV show to a film podcast
To a film
that I thought
podcast,
was a cooking
exactly.
podcast.
Say no more. So our final segment to wrap up, this one we're going to keep it pretty short, pretty concise in the future as we get better used to our timing. I think we'll give ourselves more time to digest our closing topic. But
Digest
the scheme
food,
of this
cooking
is,
Sorry.
oh my lord, it is one of us picks a movie that the other two may or may not have seen. You can always try to make it a movie that you have seen. Oh my goodness. You can always try to make it a movie that you have seen, or just to make it a movie that they haven't seen. It's totally up to them. They pick it. They send it to the other two. They have to watch it, get a review, get it in their head, and then they discuss how they made it feel. So Josh won our three-way coin toss to pick the first movie for this last little topic. So Josh, tell us what movie you chose, why you chose it, and like the briefest of summaries of how you feel about it.
Yeah. So the movie that I chose was Zootopia. I chose that movie honestly because I really wasn't sure what direction to go for this. So I ended up just scrolling through movies that I've given 5 stars, which isn't very many, but Zootopia is actually one of them. And I weirdly think that it doesn't necessarily fit into most of the influential movies that I talked about today in terms of defining itself in many of those categories. It doesn't make me cry. It's a weirdly simply structured story, but at the same time, one of the reasons that I love Zootopia so much is because it tells a very relatable and important it has very relatable and important thematic elements, and I think that telling it in the way that it was told, in the sense of one, the obvious one being like, oh, you have to try over and over again to succeed in your endeavors in life, and no matter how many times you get put down, you're gonna have to get back up again. In order to succeed, that's the more obvious one, and then something that also really appeals to me is also the elements of Zootopia that feed into stereotypes, and kind of just going, you're able to defy the things that people perceive about you. And obviously there's a more heavy topic to some of it, because there are themes in Zootopia that that go beyond what a child watching the movie is going to understand, because I do think it is more of a kids movie overall, but we don't necessarily have to get into all of the heavier themes today, especially since we're running out of time. But those are definitely the two higher themes of that movie, and they stand out to me a lot, and I like it. It's structured very well, and I like the characters, and I like the situation they were put in, and overall I think it's very funny and relatable.
Yeah, and my mode of operation going forward with this little segment is, since I am a very poor Letterboxd user for the amount of movies that I say I like and the amount I like to watch, I'm going to use this as an excuse to actually write Letterboxd reviews. With that being said, the most concise way I think to convey how I felt about Zootopia in the shortest amount of time possible is just going to basically read my Letterboxd review, so that I don't have to think about anything else to say, especially since it's been 3 weeks or 4 weeks since I watched it in response to Josh saying it. I had seen it before he said to watch it, so I did actually kind of know, but I rewatched it so I could have a fresh take. But this is how I felt about it. I gave it 3.5 stars on Letterboxd. Take that as you will, because these guys both love Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and I gave it 3 stars. So what do I know? I am nobody.
3.5.
Clearly.
My big summary paragraph was, if a bit heavy-handed in its messaging and otherwise great, it's an otherwise great story showcasing how you can't let the world decide what you are. Anyone can be anything, but it's not going to be easy. Not everyone will support you. Despite that, you must push forward to be the person or animal that you strive to be. Which I think you touched on, Josh, is one of the big central messages, that even though it's a kids movie, that's the message to the kids of you can be who you want to be. It might take a substantial amount of effort, but you can set goals, work to achieve them. You can do it. I go into a lot of stuff part of the reason that hurt its initial rating for me, and part of the reason I don't rewatch it often and it doesn't crack top lists for me. One of the reasons holding it back for me is, I think, due to the political, cultural climate that our generation's grown up in, that we're in right now or whatever, I tend to shy away from movies that tackle relevant issues, but in a very straightforward way, which I feel like Zootopia does, just on an incident of its setting. I don't think it specifically maybe set out to do that, but it just had that setting, and it went on that. And so that that just held it back or whatever. Not that I disagreed with the themes or disagreed or agreed. It goes both ways. If it's kind of like overt in that option, it's like, I could do without it. I'd rather see it portrayed more artistically or in a different way. That's just a personal thing. But all that aside, I did mention that I really enjoy Zootopia. I would rewatch it with anybody if anybody was like, hey, we're going to watch this. I'd be like, all right, cool. That's fine with me. And like I said, basically everything else I build on is the fact that the message is you can be who you want to be. You don't have to give into the stereotypes. The stereotypes don't define who you are. You define who you are, which is a really deep philosophical question that this kid movie decides to just tackle is, are you who you are, or are you who the world decides that you are? And so I think Zootopia illustrates the right point of it's not who the world says you are, it's who you decide that you're going to be and who you make yourself through effort, through choices, and through action. So overall, liked it. It got above average rating, 3.5 stars. That's above average. So I did enjoy it.
Yeah, that sloth guy is pretty funny at the D&D.
Right? He's hilarious.
Flash, man. Hey, he is a convicted criminal. He got a speeding ticket very in that movie. That is a convicted
very
criminal.
Much did. But yeah, I enjoy Zootopia. It's not personally one of my favorites. Like, and I can't really think of many specific reasons for that. It just didn't really, I don't know, kind of hit me on a deeper level. The way that
as Josh touched on earlier, it didn't hit your vibe check, you know.
Yeah,
it didn't vibe with you.
Yeah, but I guess if I was trying to look for things to nitpick, because like I think the thing this movie does best are its characters. I really like the main characters of, forgive me if I get their names wrong.
Judy Hopps
and Nick Wilde. Is that their names?
Nick Wilde.
Yeah,
baby.
yeah. I think they have like really great chemistry with each other. I really like they're just kind of the way they play off each other. I like the way that they like work together and the way that they have conflict with each other. But yeah, the characters are definitely the strong point of the movie. And I think the first 2 acts are really, really good. I think the weak point of the movie for me personally, I think the climax is a little weak. It just doesn't really, I think if it had really, just hit that climax hard, like if it had really kind of like just knocked it out of the park in the 3rd act, I think it could have been one of my favorite movies. But to me, I've never been a big fan of the whole like we were recording the villain giving his monologue, like it's just, that's not one of the cliches that I enjoy or the tropes that I enjoy personally. Like it's rare that I've seen that done and I enjoy it, But
yeah.
That's really more of a nitpick. I think this is a perfectly fine movie. I really enjoy it. I really like the creativity behind the way they design like each of the different sections of the town. Like you got like the aquatic area, the desert area, and stuff like that. And one thing that shocks me about this movie is that, because how Disney loves to make franchises out of stuff, that this isn't a franchise. Like there hasn't been a sequel to this, like despite how popular it was. Like I would have thought there would have been like a trilogy or something of this by now. But yeah, I thought it was a good movie, just not personally one of my all-time favorites or anything. I give it a solid 7.5 out of 10 personally.
I will say that and just a quick addition to what you mentioned, even though I do have this as a 5-star and I still agree with that, I do understand some maybe issues with the 3rd act of the film, although mine are more to do with character resolutions, because I kind of feel like the 2nd act kind of culminates with the 2 of them kind of splitting apart because relationship drama and everything, which is important to a movie that, as you said, is so heavily built on really liking the characters and the chemistry that they have. And then the fact that it felt like it was resolved rather quickly and ineffectively in a way, I definitely understand that. Although one of the main points about me liking the movie don't really revolve around that. So I feel like, though not insignificant, it doesn't necessarily change how I feel about it.
Yeah, like I totally understand that. Like I've always found it interesting how like somebody could three people could watch the same movie, and like a couple of people could be like, yeah, it was like a 7 out of 10, it was good. And somebody else could walk out and be like, that was a 5-star movie. You know, like I've always found that interesting.
That's all we got. That's all we got now. Jacob's apartment is probably about to burn to the floor. From
Tell you what.
his
So
cooking
are we
fiasco.
done here? Or are we gonna pick the next person who's gonna pick a movie?
Hey, that's all a surprise, baby. That's
All
all behind the
surprise?
scenes
Okay,
surprise,
okay.
baby.
So tell you what.
Yeah, man.
A moment of truth. I am going to change out the batteries real quick in my smoke alarm here.
Be careful.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
dude,
putting the
careful,
batteries in, and they are in. And okay. What does loud beeping mean? Can you guys hear that?
Oh yeah, actually, I'm starting to hear some of it.
I'm gonna go to the I'm gonna go to the kitchen real quick. Oh God!
Oh my God,
oh,
it's so loud. Please mute your
That's
mic.
a really
Jesus.
okay. What you're hearing is the sound of fire.
Oh my God.
My
God
kitchen,
bless
tell you
Jacob.
what, my kitchen is on fire, so I am gonna sign off here.
Call the fire department.
No, I got this. I'll see you guys next week.
Oh, God bless. Oh, my God.
Well,
I think my Bluetooth headphones peaked out when the siren went off.
I guess we're
Oh,
gonna end
God.
this exactly how we started.
Jesus.
Actually, yes,
Why did we
we'll
ever
close-
invite him to this
We'll
thing?
close with that line from Harry Potter. We'll finish this the way we
Oh,
we
that-
started. Together.
Together.